Here's a question you should really think about. Have you created your own Jesus? I've heard people say things starting with the words, my Jesus would, or starting with, my Jesus wouldn't. Well, I can tell you, you're on shaky ground if you start a statement with, my Jesus. I've heard some politicians promoting their policy agendas based on Jesus miraculously feeding the multitudes. In a sense, they're creating their own Jesus. You see, those food miracles weren't about politics, policies, or even the poor. And Jesus only did them twice. Those politicians did create their own Jesus for their own purposes, their own agendas. But have some of us done the same thing? Have we treated the Bible's account of Jesus like a menu, picking only what we like and rejecting the rest? And many really only choose the tasty appetizers. Or maybe what we believe is based on hearsay, secondhand information, or misinformation. Is the Jesus you acknowledge, or the Jesus you reject, the Jesus of the Bible? Think about it. Let's start with what he looked like. I've seen the pictures. You have too. He looks sort of Caucasian, a little tall, handsome, athletic more than muscular, attractive. He's got long, clean hair, a trimmed beard, and newly washed and pressed robes. One movie that I tried to watch even had a man playing his part that had blue eyes. Or maybe your Jesus looks more like Da Vinci's 15th century Jesus at the Last Supper. You know, a glow around his head. Handsome, but not quite manly looking. Looking sort of like a Renaissance Italian royal. And he's sitting at a table with his disciples. He's not on the floor like they would have been in the first century. And have you ever wondered why they were all sitting on the same side of the table? Was it some kind of head table in a banquet hall? No. Or had Jesus just said to them, hey, if you guys don't get on this side of the table, you won't be in the picture? But seriously, have you let others paint your picture of Jesus? Have you painted your own? Or do you see the true Jesus of the Bible? Let's face some reality here. Jesus was born as a Jew. He didn't look like a white Westerner, an African, Indian, Hispanic, or an Asian. He was a Middle Eastern Jew. So what did he look like? What did he actually look like? Well, we don't have any photos. But there is one prophetic description of his looks. It's in Isaiah 53. Here it is. He has no stately form or majesty that we should look upon him, nor appearance that we should be attracted to him. He was despised and forsaken of men, a man of sorrows and acquainted with grief, and like one from whom men hide their face. Wow, that doesn't match the pictures I've seen. Does it yours? I spent this time on his looks to show how we create our own Jesus based on our influences, experiences, expectations, opinions, race, and even our prejudices. Often we create the Jesus we desire, actually a false one that fits into our agendas. Have you created a Jesus that was just a man? That's not the Jesus of the Bible. Have you created a watered-down Jesus who was just a good moral teacher? That's an indefensible opinion. He said he was God. If he wasn't God, then he was a megalomaniac or a liar. No one should listen to someone like that, or he was just mentally off. Have you thought or been taught that Jesus was created or came into existence at Bethlehem, born but not eternal? I can tell you, that's not the Jesus of the Bible. Or have you believed that Jesus was just one in a string of prophets or one of many roads to God? That's not the Jesus of the Bible either. What does the Bible actually say about Jesus? Well, here are some facts straight from the Bible. He was from the days of eternity. The eternal Jesus entered our world in Bethlehem. And you see, Jesus was the main agent of creation. He wasn't created. He was the creator. And he appeared at different times in the Old Testament days as the angel of the Lord. He appeared to Abraham, Hagar, Moses, Joshua, and others. He claimed equality with God. And he said he was the visible representation of God. He said he was the I Am, equating himself to the one God who spoke to Moses from the burning bush. He said that he existed before Abraham. He claimed the God-only authority to forgive sins. He said he had the authority to judge man. And he said he was the source of eternal life. He stated that he was the one way, the only way to God. And he said that he was the bread of life. Then he miraculously fed the 5,000. Wow, that's dramatic. And he said he was the light of the world, at the same time as he healed a man born blind, a man that had never seen any light. And Jesus said he had the power over life and death, that he was the resurrection and the life. And to prove it, he raised his friend Lazarus from the grave. The Apostle John wrote that Jesus was God. The Apostles Peter and Paul wrote the same thing. And the author of the New Testament letter to the Hebrews wrote, "Your throne, O God," referring to Jesus, "is forever and ever, and the righteous scepter is the scepter of his kingdom. You have loved righteousness and hated lawlessness. Therefore God," referring to Jesus, "your God," meaning the Father, "has anointed you with the oil of gladness." All of these facts with the Bible references are in the justaquestion.org's library of documents. So millennial, don't you think it would be a good idea to take another look at the real Jesus, even if you haven't found him in church? You'll find him in the Bible. Start with the New Testament book of John. Just read it with an open mind. Skeptic, think about who you are rejecting or keeping at arm's length. Do you really want to turn your back on the real Jesus? And seeker, think about this. The real Jesus, the one I described, the one the Bible describes, died in your place. And believer, Jesus said, "All authority has been given to me in heaven and on earth. Go therefore and make disciples of all the nations. And lo, I am with you always, even to the end of the age." Or as the Amplified Bible ends that, he's with us perpetually, uniformly, and on every occasion. That's while we're obeying the Great Commission. That's his authority-based, power-based promise of his presence as you get on with his Great Commission. So, wherever you're at in your spiritual journey, when you think about Jesus, think about the real Jesus, the Jesus of the Bible. I'm John Morris. I'll see you on the next Just a Question.